this is the murder that happens. You see the murder, and then you just kind of go with a dramatic tale. You don't see anything. You don't know anything. You are as blind as the jury in this case. You have to. You have
I
to.
thought you were going to say the sun. I'll be honest.
No, I was going to say.
I braced myself.
So I was like,
"You're as blind as the sun."
Hold on, Shay. You're saying it like the Riddler, by the way, in the Batman.
I am blind as a bat. That's so funny.
Man, I was.
Hello and welcome to the movie podcast at TIFF. My name is Daniel. I am one of your hosts today, and joining alongside me to review Anatomy of a Fall is Shahbaz.
Oh, hello.
And Anthony.
Hello, I'm falling. Oh no,
Oh no, that's in poor taste.
That
Is
is
it in
not
poor
what
taste?
they say in this movie.
That's what they say when you fall. I'm falling for sure.
Well, yeah, like I'm falling and I can't get up, and
Isn't
as
that
you can
silly,
see in the poster
though?
for this movie, he does not get up.
Isn't that silly?
What's silly?
Saying that I'm falling while you're falling. It's like, we know, man. We know.
Well, no,
I'm falling.
what if you're alone, like our guy here, and he
our
is
mans.
falling alone? You gotta scream
know.
it in case someone.
In
right?
case the Flash is nearby and it comes to save you.
Everybody gets one. Everyone gets one.
Someone has to come to you. If you land in the forest and no one's here to hear you,
The old if a tree falls in the forest. If a man falls in the forest.
Well, this man is in France, so I don't know if that changes anything.
They don't have forest there.
This is our very first TIFF 2023 review. The movie podcast is back at TIFF. They somehow, and for some reason, let us come back to the festival that's in our backyard.
They don't know what's
but we're
good for them.
They don't. But we're so grateful. They couldn't keep us out. Come on. They couldn't keep us out. We would have found a way in. We're so happy to be back at TIFF. Like we said, like this is a festival we look forward to all year round. It's right in our backyard as well, too. So it's just great to be covering something so close to home and to really get a taste of movies from around the world. Today we're going to be talking about Anatomy of a Fall. This isn't a traditional review as you may be accustomed to here on the movie podcast. We will be talking about a movie. This movie, just like we do with all the reviews, but we won't be giving our final recommendations at the end because a lot of these movies don't have release dates. They're only playing at the festivals right now. So we obviously, want to give you the chance to explore them and give us your thoughts and do all of that. But because we don't have all the variables yet for when you could see them, we can't really tell you what to do other than listen to the movie podcast because you can catch brand new episodes all throughout the week. Make sure you're following us on social media as well because we have incredible videos and pictures and everything you need to know what's going on here in the movie podcast. That's where you want to go at the movie podcast on Instagram, TikTok, Letterboxd, wherever you have social media. We're there. But we really want to make sure you join us on Discord because we're having some great conversations. If any of you are going to be at TIFF and you're checking out movies, join our Discord. We'd love to know what you're watching and we want to have a really great community. We already do. We just want to make it even bigger. So thank you for everyone who has joined. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, leave a comment below. Let us know what you're looking forward to at TIFF. If you've seen any movies, there's lots to look forward to. And I cannot think of a better one to start with than Anatomy of a Fall. This film is coming out of France. It is directed by Justine Triet, and it is the Palme d'Or winner. So this film is already getting big praise coming into the Toronto International Film Festival this year. So there's lots to look forward to. Before we dive into our first reaction, where I'm going to kick it over to Shahbaz for that, I do want to let you know that today's episode of the movie podcast, like most of our episodes during TIFF, is brought to you by MUBI. If you want to get a month free of incredible cinema, make sure you stay tuned for the ad later on in the show where you could hear us talk all about it. We'll tee it up for you so you know it's coming. And of course, check out our show notes below because that's the link that you want to use to sign up because it shows MUBI that you're using our link and you heard about MUBI from the movie podcast. And it just helps the show grow. And if you want to support the movie podcast, if you like what we're doing, that's the best way to do it as of now. There's some ways coming soon, so stay tuned for that. But let's dive right into Anatomy of a Fall. Shahbaz, start us off with your first reaction to the film.
Anatomy of a Fall is one of those movies that's exactly my bag. And I know for you two gentlemen as well, courtroom dramas, especially ones that really tend to kind of push the boundaries of what we've seen in courtroom dramas that surprise us, movies like this are honestly our kind of bag. This is that movie. This is that movie where it's It's show don't tell at so many moments. It's, you know, tell don't show at certain moments as well. And there's a great blend of using all the different languages that a foreign language film can incorporate. You never feel lost while watching a movie that has English, German, and French in it. And I love that about this movie. It is a long film at just over 2.5 hours. You start to kind of feel the pacing a little bit at certain points, but because the movie is so methodical in the way it's showing you things or the way it's telling you things, you never quite feel bored. In fact, you're so engaged. You have a courtroom drama that's occurring where you totally feel like you are a part of the jury. I know that one thing that you brought up, Daniel, and also Anthony, you brought up as well, was we haven't really seen courtroom dramas that take place in Europe. So every country, every region has their own way of showing us how the legal system works. We typically always see movies. I look back to movies like A Few Good Men, a very popular courtroom drama that takes place in the States, and you have the back and forth and the dramatics of it all. We're so used to that. This movie truly felt almost like a documentary at certain points because of how authentic everything looked, the people, the way they reacted. It also helps not knowing any of these actors because we maybe aren't part of that world, or we constantly seeing them on TV or movies or wherever they're from. But feeling that disconnect allowed me to feel so connected with the film because I was so engaged into what was happening. I had no idea what twists and turns were going to take place. And the way that they're even laid out is so gorgeous. It's so riveting. It really keeps you entrenched into what the story is about. There are performances in this film from human to animal that are absolutely groundbreaking. I know that sounds weird, but I know for all three of us at one point of this film, we're like, that dog right there, oh my God, what a performance by that dog. I've never seen, like,
incredible.
I went home immediately and I looked at my
Air
dog.
Bud who? You know?
Air Bud who?
Air
I
Bud
looked
who?
at my dog. I looked at Dino and I'm like, listen, I didn't realize that we could have a career for you in the movie business. Let's start some lines. So we start doing some Macbeth back and forth, and I don't think it's working for him. But I'm hoping he'll pick it up very soon.
He's on strike. He's already part of.
What's the SAG? SAG after for dogs? Dogtra. Yeah, dogs in the acting business. I mean, I you know what? We should try to get that dog for the interview.
I'm not even joking. I'm genuinely curious. Is there a union for animals in
There has
film?
to be. There has to be.
There has to be, right?
Yeah.
We're going to look it up and we'll answer it on a future episode.
100%.
There has to be, right? Because there's rules and restrictions. Shay, before you finish your next thought,
sure.
I do want to tee up, because we've been talking about what happens in this movie. It's called Anatomy of a Fall. With TIFF movies, a lot of people may not know the premise of the movie, what it is, or what's going on in Anatomy of a Fall. How would you describe it? What's happening in this movie?
Well, in this film, we have I was going to say murder, but then I'm like, wait, is that like me being on the other side of things? But there is a death that occurs. A man falls off the highest point of his house. And at this point, we're now trying to figure out, did the wife do it? Did it happen by accident? Was it suicide? There's all these other things I played. They have a son who's partially blind. There's just a lot involved in this film, but in a way, it's a murder courtroom drama with a little bit of mystery to it as well. There's so much good about this film. There's some things that I feel like I wish could have been a bit tighter. I feel like the film could have been a little faster at certain points. But every time this movie is in the courtroom, I am just absolutely hooked. I felt so surprised. I was so engaged in this drama that I kept thinking, okay, is this based on a true story? Is this real, or is this something that someone's written? There's so much beauty to this film, not only how it looks, but also, like we said, the acting, the performances, everything about this film is just very, very engaging. But I do definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts as well.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to get to that. And I want to say too, it's so interesting that we're getting a film from a perspective that is, like Shay said, outside of the United States, because us as North Americans, as consumers of American films, we're so used to how that judicial system works. So when we see it done a little bit differently, especially in the case which we're going to talk about very soon in France, it's so fascinating to see it, and I think it lends to a lot more dramatic moments. But before we kick it over to Anthony for his thoughts, stay tuned for these thoughts on MUBI.
This episode of the MUBI Podcast is brought to you by MUBI, a global curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe.
From iconic directors to emerging auteurs, there is always something new to discover. Some recent MUBI releases include Park Chan-wook's Decision to Leave, Leigh Amesius' The Five Devils, and Lars von Trier's The Kingdom Trilogy.
With MUBI, each and every film is hand-selected. It's like your own personal film festival, streaming anytime, anywhere.
And speaking of festivals, the Toronto International Film Festival is happening right now, and there's a World of Cinema in Toronto. And the only other place that you could get a World of Cinema at your fingertips is on MUBI.
Picture this, you and your closest friends in a screen loaded with hand-picked cinematic gems, all courtesy of MUBI.
Are you bored of the same old movies available every single streaming service? MUBI is the place where you're going to get something that you've never heard of before, and it may just be your next favorite film. You can try MUBI free for 30 days at mubi.com/themoviepodcast. That's mubi.com/themoviepodcast for a whole month of great cinema for free.
And welcome back. Anthony, give us your first reactions to Anatomy of a Fall.
So I've never been to jury duty, but on Tuesday, I was the jury in this movie. And that's what this movie really makes you feel. It makes you feel like you are the detective, you are part of the jury, and up to the end, you have to make a decision. Guilty or not guilty. And that's where this courtroom thriller comes into play. This movie is fascinating. I didn't expect it to be paced and edited like the way we watched it. I thought it was going to be more of a dramatic tone. We were going to dive into the family dynamics, which we do, but it's just the way Justine directs it. It just feels like, no, I don't want you to watch this. I want you to be part of it. And that's what this movie really does. And that's why when I heard about this film premiering at the Cannes Film Festival, then winning, and I remember the biggest thing was, like she's on trial because there's a suspicious death and they don't know if it's suicide or if it was, if she was the cause. And the only person that was in and around that area was her son, who's also blind. And that's just, I'm like, okay, get me in. Like, there's so many dynamics that you go through when you're investigating this murder this death that's happening on screen. Who's guilty, who's not guilty, all the information that's given to you. By the end of it, you want to go watch the movie again because there is so much that unravels as the movie happens that you didn't think about when you were watching it from the beginning. So now you want to watch it and put these puzzle pieces together to see if was she guilty or was she not guilty? And that's the whole dynamic of Anatomy of a Fall, is because you don't get this dynamic of a courtroom thriller. It's more of like the, this is the murder that happens. You see the murder, and then you just kind of go with a dramatic tale. You don't see anything. You don't know anything. You are as blind as the jury in this case. You have to. I
thought you were going to say the son. I'll be honest.
No, I was going to say.
I braced myself.
Breaths. I was like,
"You're as blind as the sun."
Hold on, Shay. You're saying it like the Riddler, by the way, and the Batman.
I am blind as a bat. That's so funny.
Man, I was gripped from beginning, and it is a long movie, and you'll feel it. Like there are parts of this film where you start to, they get out of the courtroom and you feel it slow down, and then within like minutes you're back in the courtroom, you're back in the prosecutor's chair, you're back with the judges. And I've never seen a courtroom drama that happens in France. Like I've seen a lot of like in England and UK, very similar to what we have in Canada. They have like the hair sometimes and the gowns, but in the French trial system, it's so different. It's like you could be questioned as the defendant at any time, which is so weird. Like usually you're on the stand, and after you're off the stand, they can't question you again. In France, they could do that. They could just at any point question you in relation to, and it's like almost like a conversation.
Yeah.
And it's also polite for some reason. It's like there's this very intellectual conversation happening. And that's another thing I want to say. This story is so well written. It's very, very well written, and it's very intellectual. It's very like wow, like I wouldn't have never thought of like writing these things in. Even the dynamic between the husband and wife and having the argument they have. I'm like, I've never had an argument with like that with people that I've dated. It's more of like, where are we going to eat? They're like the existential grown up type of conversation, which leads to a lot of the things that you as a viewer will know and understand why things have happened. So overall, like I was just floored and gripped from performances and the storytelling and just everyone who was involved, especially the dog Messi. He blew me away.
That's the dog's actual
That's the dog's actual
real name.
I remember
that's the dog's real name. Yeah.
The scene happened. I looked at Daniel. I said, Cillian Murphy has competition this year.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's true. What a performance by Messi. He plays Snoop in this film. But Anthony, you know, jumping off your point, the point there of being in that courtroom, I think the director Justine, she makes you feel like an active participant, right? I think that's what we've all been saying so far, that you are a member of the jury. You're watching this film. You're watching everything unfold, and as the trial goes forward, you're learning a little bit more about the backstory. But anytime we leave the courtroom, we're getting a little bits of tidbit, but it doesn't outstay its welcome, and then puts you right back into the courtroom. And I love, there's a line in this movie that's been stuck with me in my head, from the lawyer in the film for trying to, you know, prove the case of the wife, who's played by Sandra Hüller, who is just wonderful. She's incredible in this film. Her lawyer in the film says to her, "A trial isn't about, telling the truth. You know, it's like it's not about the truth. The trial is not about the truth. It's about what you could prove, right?" And you're watching it and you're learning these things, and you are switching sides as the movie's going on. You're like, oh, like, is she doing that? Was this happening? Was that? It's really impressive to see how, as you get more information, even your opinion starts to sway, and you start to wonder, okay, like, oh, we didn't know this before. And there are moments of this film that are actually shot almost like a documentary, especially the first, I would say, half of the movie. There's a lot of shots of them recreating the incidents where they're shooting, where I guess the detectives are recording the family. So you're getting a lot of perspectives in the camera shifts, where you're not just, the traditional like look of the film. You're getting handheld footage. You're getting these moments that make it feel very intimate and make it feel very real. And one of the things I love most, as Anthony and Shay both mentioned, is that when you're on the stand in France, that they could just question you at any time, and it is just back and forth, and it is so intense that you're just like, oh my God, like, these lawyers are just like ruthless in finding every little detail and unspooling every single moment of your life and presenting in front of everybody. And no matter how innocent you think one character may be or how guilty they are, there's always these little crumbs sprinkled throughout that I can't wait to watch this movie again so I could see all those little moments. And there's a part of this movie that I literally went, wow. So we find out in a moment, again, this is not a spoiler. We see this in the trailer, if you've seen the trailer, where they're on the stands and they're playing a recording of an argument that this husband and wife had. And in this recording, it's all through, it kind of jumps into the memory of them, and it's the husband and wife reenacting whatever argument or whatever they're discussing. It starts off as a discussion, turns into an argument, and then as soon as some violence starts to take place, it cuts back to the courtroom, to the perspective of the jury. And I literally leaned over to both of you guys, and I'm like, that is incredible, because we're hearing this violence happening, but then again, we're being thrown back into that, like, yeah, we don't actually know what happened that day or what happened in that moment. So it's back just the jury listening to it. And it's just such a brilliant like stroke of direction from Justine to really put it all back into the audience and literally to the jury, to the audience's perspective of, what do you think happened? And I love that. It's been so long since we've seen a really great courtroom drama, I'll be honest with you. Shay, you mentioned A Few Good Men, which is a film that I watch, I think maybe like every 5 to 6 months.
A few good
'Cause
months
it
you watch them.
Every few good months I watch it because it's one of my favorites, and I love courtroom dramas. And to have one that half this movie is in French, some of it's in German, but of a lot of it's in English as well too. And like obviously you're opening up yourself to a whole world of cinema when you're watching films from around the world. But what a brilliant film! I just was absolutely in love with every direction they took. The performances in this film, you know, I mentioned Sandra Hüller, who is just incredible. Messi, the dog, fantastic. But everyone had such an important role. And I'm not surprised that this won the Palme d'Or because it's just so brilliantly written, so incredibly performed. And I think when you mix that with the direction, Justine's direction, it really is one of the best films that I've seen this year. It has been, you know, it's been lingering on my mind because it really is just so well executed, and it's just gripping. Gripping is the term. Anthony, you said it. You are gripped from beginning to end. You want to know more about this family. You want to figure out what happened, obviously. And then as this film ends, you're left with just, you know, these thoughts of like, was it true? Was it not true? Like there's no easy way out for this movie. And I like that it challenges the audience. This movie will challenge you, and this will, like I said, sway you from different perspectives. And I think that's really important. And I think there needs to be more movies that really challenge you in your beliefs and what you think actually happened, which is great.
The editing for me was top notch. I think the way, because it is a 2-hour film, you are
or 2.5 hour,
2.5 hour, over 2 hour.
It's
film.
a heavy one.
Yes, and you are kind of, the pacing for this film starts really slow, even with everything that happens in the beginning. It starts really slow, but it starts to ramp up. And the way they edit the story, because it's a lot of like in the courtroom, in the house, the perspective of Daniel, the son, the perspective of
yes
of the conversation that was recorded on tape. There's a lot of really cool, unique type of storytelling, and it's brought out through the editing to get you in the mindset of an investigator. And I truly feel like I felt like I was investigating this murder. Or this death. I keep saying murder. I don't. Maybe that's something that I assume that happened to him, but I don't believe. Like we talked about this many times. Or, you know, was it a death or was it suicide? Was it something else? But we know he died. We know that. But there's so many.
It's on the poster. It's on the poster. This man,
yes,
it's in the trailer. It's movie. This man is not alive anymore.
But it's not about that. It's about
no.
And that's what we talked about in what you said, Daniel, in that little pull thing the pull quote that you mentioned. But
yeah,
it's just fantastic. I look at Oppenheimer, which had, I think, a lot better editing in the sense because it's a back and forth and nonlinear storytelling. But this is such a nonlinear storytelling as well that they were able to encompass and really grip you into wanting to know more and wanting to go back. I think that's my biggest thing is I want to go back and see what I missed so I can investigate further.
Yeah, and there's also some great needle drops in this film. I think hearing a steel band version of P.I.M.P by 50 Cent, a good, like, again, like it feels like if I was saying that, it feels like, are you messing with me? I'm like, no, there's a good chunk of this movie where we kind of keep going back to that song playing because that was a big song that was playing in the moment where stuff happens. Yeah, it's there. And it's again, I feel like if I was describing this to somebody, they'd feel like I'm making that up because like, what's that doing in a French film? But no, it's there. It's there. But I think that's about wraps up our discussion here. Again, we're not giving our final recommendations as we normally would on a traditional review because, again, this film is not slated to come out in Canada as of yet. It's just doing the festival route. It is going to be released by Elevation Pictures, hopefully very soon, because it is a damn great movie and is worth your time. So if you're seeing it at TIFF, let us know. Leave a comment below if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're on Discord, make sure you join us over there. We're having some great conversations, and this is the movie that you want to talk about with people. You want to dissect it and go through it, and maybe one day if we ever, have another platform like a movie book club type of thing, like this is a film that we would dive into and really just break down and hear people's opinions on because there's so much to dissect here, and I cannot wait to watch it Again, so damn good. Of course, this is the movie podcast. You could catch brand new episodes all throughout the week. We are at TIFF 2023, so look forward to all of our coverage. We have lots of reviews coming your way. We have lots of interviews coming your way. And this is the best place to be. We're the movie podcast. Where else are you going to go? No, we're so happy that you're here. We love doing what we're doing. We have some really great stuff coming up, and you don't want to miss any of it. That was This Time with the Movie podcast, and we'll see you next.